joined now by Isaac Trotter. He's a national college basketball writer for 24/7 and CBS Sports. What's going on, Isaac?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Good. So I hear it, right? I think it needs context. Curious to get your thoughts on, we've seen all the messaging on social media, right? 4 conferences representing the Sweet 16, the fewest conferences ever, but conferences are a lot bigger now. Fair or foul to not give that some context based on the basketball you've been watching?
I honestly think it's something that I was kind of expecting. I thought that this had a chance to be closer to a chalkier tournament than maybe the past, because I thought that the teams at the top were really, really good, right? Like the 4-1 seeds. It's hard to poke a lot of holes in Duke, Houston, Florida, and Auburn. Even like the 2 seeds, like those are really, really good teams. And so when you kind of see these leagues, these super leagues start to form, I think this was kind of inevitable, especially when you talk about the type of money that are invested in some of these rosters compared to others. And the other factor that I think was playing a part in this is, 3-point shooting was down. And a lot of these mid-major teams that had terrific seasons were really built on 3-point shooting. And maybe we can talk about the overinflated basketballs or just, nights where threes don't go in against more athletic teams. But a team like UC San Diego, if they make a couple more threes, they're beating Michigan, right? Like we're not having some of these conversations. And that's just, it kind of is what it is. I think it's a sad reality. At the same time, I could very well see this just being a one-off.
Isaac, as you kind of look through the teams that are remaining, is there anybody that you look at and you go, I'm not totally sure how they're still here?
Boy, what a great question, because all of these teams are really good, right? For me, I think that Michigan was a bit surprising to me. I think that they have done a terrific job of finding a way to get it done. But on Selection Sunday, I hated this draw for them. Not necessarily because of UC San Diego. I thought they had a chance to beat them on the glass. But I thought on paper, Texas A&M was like a horrible matchup for them. And then you kind of look at the box score or watch the game, and you're like, all right, it took Roddy Gale hitting 4 threes after he went like 1 for 27 from 3.
Yeah, well, he won't be repeating that. And A&M just inexplicably couldn't advance the basketball. It's like,
it was bizarre.
What are you guys
right?
doing?
It felt like one of those games where I was like, all right, Michigan needed all of 8 A, B, C, D, and E to win this game, and A, B, C, D, and E all connected for them. So I'll go in Michigan with that one, because I genuinely thought that Texas A&M was going to beat them by, maybe even double figures in the second round game. And I kind of feel like they could have if a couple of things hadn't gone their way.
So I'm not calling for the upset, but it's a team that I like just because of the way they play, and they got a couple of pros. I think Thursday's got a juicy one because Bama struggles defensively. I think BYU's better than we think, man. I have Bama in the Final Four, actually upsetting Duke. That was my separator to try to break free from the pack, and I may regret it. But Bama looks vulnerable, and I know BYU's length and shooting ability is a problem.
No, that's a great point. I'm right there with you. I think the way I would sum up Alabama is I think they're supposed to be a better 3-point shooting team than they actually are. Yeah. And I think BYU is what Alabama kind of envisioned itself being as a shooting team. Like nothing about what BYU does as a shooting team feels fluky. Like they create great shots. And I think Yegor Demon, him looking comfortable and assertive, really changes the calculus for that BYU team. That was a guy that I didn't think he was supposed to be on the floor at times for them, and was hurting them at times during the late parts of Big 12 play. And now he just he looked great against Wisconsin, giving them an early jolt. I thought he really set the tone for them against VCU. So I'm kind of with you. That VCU or that BYU Alabama game is going to be extremely fun. And I think BYU's shot making could potentially separate themselves. Although I am a little bit concerned about Mark Sears and his foul baiting. He gets to the free throw line 12, 13, 14 times a game. So if he does that again, he's beating BYU.
Why people continually let him go left, I have no idea. But it's apparently harder than me just watching my television saying that's the way he wants to go.
Hey, don't let him go left.
But I'll tell you the other thing he does, Isaac. His herky, he's not quite Shea Gilgeous, but his change of pace rather than the blow by has to be pretty frustrating for defenders because he's got really good body control.
Great body control. Him and LeBaron Philon, I think, are kind of together in that, where both of them just like they stop start, and that little ability just to get defenders bending the wrong way and they're able to puncture defenses is really impressive. And if you're looking for a hole on this BYU team, I would not say their perimeter point of attack defense is something I love. Now, granted, I do like their rim protection. Kebaketa is a big time shot blocker. He's only 6'8", but the wingspan that he plays with is well over 7 feet, and that has certainly helped them. And I think the UConn model is something that a lot of teams are looking for. Like, are we really good in half court offense, and can we also have an awesome rim protector? And there's only, a few teams, there's 2 teams left in this field that are top 30 in half-court offense and top 30 in rim defense. And that's Duke, which you kind of expect, and BYU. So, that would be really funny if both of those 2 teams could meet with a Final Four date on the line.
And outside of Baker, and he's 6'4", everybody's that plays meaningful minutes is 6'4" and bigger. That their size is, they get some good shots off around the perimeter. I think Wisconsin figured that out as a team that likes to score. You saw them get into the 90s, and you're like, yeah, I could see that. That reminded me of the team that shot KU's lights out in front of the Rock a month ago in Utah. It's like that's a big mature basketball team.
And I think they just do a great job of finding roles for guys. Like Mawat Mag could not shoot at Rutgers, and his body was not very good. And this year he's shooting 39% from 3. His body looks a lot more sleek and trim, and he's able to be more of a wing defender. I think he's going to be huge in that type of game. Just maybe he's the guy that they chase Mark Sears around with. Maybe he's the guy that gets some time on Grant Nelson. BYU's just done a really good job of elevating that personnel. I mean, Richie Saunders is having a career year. Mag, like I said, is having a career year. Kata's having a career year, and they create great shots. They're good. They're really, really good. I'm super impressed by them. They were as big of a winner for me from this first weekend as any program.
As well as Creighton shot the ball, and in particular, or especially in the first half, obviously, from distance. How do you think Auburn got away with not getting a ton out of Broome and having the second half that they did?
Yeah, something just feels a little bit off with Auburn, right? I can't be the only person that thinks that. Every time I watch them, I'm just like, what? What's not here? Where's this juju? Where's that fight that this group seemed to have? But I think Tahad Pettiford has continued to show that he can be a complete game changer, and just I feel like he's just so fearless. Especially against drop coverage, he's super comfortable. He's got the floater in his bag. He's got the mid-range jumper in his bag, and I think that diversification of Auburn's shot profile really changes what I think they can do. So yeah, maybe it's such a thing as just Ryan Kalkbrenner's a really tough matchup for Janai Broome, and Auburn's supporting cast found a way to get the job done. But yeah, there's definitely some my spidey senses are going off a little bit with Auburn, where maybe a couple weeks ago I was like, yeah, I'm not worried about this team at all, and now I'm like, this just isn't quite giving me the warm and fuzzies that I was kind of hoping.
Isaac, so I'm curious about the teams that got eliminated and didn't make it to the Sweet 16. Is there anyone that you're looking at? Obviously, the St. John's Arkansas was the biggest upset kind of the first weekend, but was there anybody you looked at and you go, man, I really am surprised they weren't able to get to this Sweet 16?
Yeah, for me, St. John's is probably the biggest one. The other one that I looked at was Clemson. I thought Clemson matched up extremely well with Purdue, and if they were able to get past McNeese, I thought that was a team that could make the second weekend and really, have a chance to go on a run. That's a very old team. And that first half against McNeese was as bad of a 20 minutes of basketball that I've seen from any team this year. That was atrocious. I think they scored 13 points in the first half. Mm-hmm. I didn't even think McNeese was playing all that well. They had no energy. It looked very lethargic. They looked, not very athletic. This is a McNeese crew that, it's not a typical Southland team because, what Will Wade has done recruiting it. But, it felt like McNeese was more athletic at every single position than Clemson. I think that was a huge missed opportunity for Clemson to be able to put some noise together. But yeah, you're right. St. John's is obviously, probably the correct answer for that one too, because I just didn't think Arkansas could score enough. And, maybe the whistle had something to do with that too. I know that St. John's wasn't super happy with some of those, the fifth foul on Kadari Richmond was tough. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, a St. John's offense, half-court offense that ranked outside the top 200, just couldn't get the job done. And I think it's just a sign that, like, in college basketball these days, if your half-court offense is an elite, you can't mask that with transition every single time. And I think Michigan State's going to find that out really soon too.
This team's interesting because we've wanted to say that we don't think they're very good. I've kind of argued when they're going on offense, they're actually fun to watch. 19 turnovers is a head popper for Purdue. And one of your better shooters, Lawyer, missed the bulk of their threes, and they still shot 42% from three. Is there anything stylistically that you like that Purdue does offensively with Painter that you think gives Kelvin Sampson problems coaching the Cougars?
Yeah, I think to me, like the big way to beat Houston is have your bigs be able to make good decisions. And I thought that Traycoff and Wren's playmaking, maybe not necessarily getting assists, but getting the ball to the right guys against that pressure trapping, defense that McNeese did, is something that Purdue could try to replicate against Houston. But to be honest, guys, like when I saw Houston-Purdue, I was like, man, that's a horrible matchup for Purdue. Like everything that Houston does well is built to give Purdue problems. So I think for me, it's like Traycoff and Wren's going to have to hit a lot of those runners, those tough floaters that, Hunter Dickinson against Houston would have some big games with that type of shot. He's going to have to be great as a playmaker because, I mean, let's just be honest, Houston's going to do whatever they can to take, Braden Smith out of the game. And also on the other end, how does Purdue guard Houston?
I don't think
Purdue
that's going to be a problem because they don't get the glass either.
They don't get the glass, right? Like, exactly. It's like, okay, like we can't offensive rebound or we can't defensive rebound, and Houston's going to send guys to the glass constantly. And Houston's guards are all so much bigger than Purdue's. Like, they're going to be able to get into the lane whenever they want, create spray out threes. Like, it just feels like this is a really, really tough matchup for Purdue.
Anomaly or just kind of how it's going with getting pressured without another really good ball handler that Smith turned it over 8 times?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of an anomaly. I would not put too much stock into that. I thought for the most part, his decision-making was pretty good. At times I think that he was really controlling that game. And I, obviously, for the most part, I do think that he helps you way, way more than he hurts you. But again, like I said, like I head into this Houston game being like extremely nervous for this outlook because I feel like, Milos Uzan is like one of my favorite guards in college basketball. I think
fearless.
He's going to be draped all over Braden Smith for 40 minutes.
That dude is tough. He's a dog. I mean, people talk about his 3-point shooting. I'm like, he's a great defender.
Great defender. And he can play make a little bit. And the shooting, he's shooting over 50% on pull-up jumpers. Like, he's just tough. Like, he's really tough. Like, my big thing this year was like, I was not going to get irritated at all conference voting. And then I saw Milos Uzan was not a first team all Big 12 guy, even though they put 10 guys on the first team, and I got irritated again.
Isaac, if Houston and Purdue is the worst stylistic matchup in the Sweet 16, what's the best one?
Ooh, I got one.
This one's super fun because I think when I was looking at this, like, Maryland against Florida has the makings to be a really special game.
That's the one I like too. Great call.
That one actually makes me mad because I liked Maryland to make a run, but I liked Florida to win the national championship. I was mad they got matched up here in terms of like my bracket, but I'm super excited for this game.
I agree, Isaac.
You took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly how I'm feeling. Like, both of those teams, like, it's like this is a complete like shame that they're meeting in the Sweet 16. Like, this is a Final Four type of game. Like, I was kind of hoping to see them in San Antonio, but I mean, if you like double big lineups, this is the one for you. Florida will play a double big lineup of, basically off 40 minutes. Can Maryland's big stay out of foul trouble? And then how about the shot making from these guards? Like Walter Clayton, Will Richard, and Elijah Martin, who's like a football player playing basketball. Like, all three of those guys can fill it up. Conversely, Maryland just trots out Rodney Rice, who just drains everything. Jacoby Gillespie makes everything. Miguel is one of the top shooters in the country this year. Shot making, bigs, talent, great style. Like, both of these coaches are fiery. Like, this game is going to be outstanding.
I love the fact, and again, it's just kind of the Big Ten country, the resident honks. I'm a big Jacoby Gillespie guy. I think the poise that he plays with, and here's the thing. They don't turn the ball over. I think Against Colorado State, they only had 6. It's a pretty good backcourt. I do worry a little bit about Florida's length, though, in the backcourt because it's deceptive and it's kind of a problem.
It is, and I think that Florida also, like, I feel like they have more guys that can dribble than Maryland at times. Like, it feels like sometimes it feels like Maryland's second best ball handler is Derek Queen. Like, Rodney Rice is a good player, but he doesn't necessarily want to handle it all that much. It's like, I think Kevin Willard has summed it up really well, where he's like, I get terrified every time Sultan Miguel puts the ball on the deck. Yep. Like, it just is what it is. So I do think that the Florida's length, their depth, and they're
only going to play 7 guys too.
I mean, I kind of think depth is. Ben McCollum said this. Like, I think depth is a little overrated, but I don't think it's overrated in this game. Like, I think you definitely will need it in a game like this, where it'll be a heavyweight fight. And even like some of Florida's backup guards, like Denzel Aberdeen comes in. I'm like, oh yeah, he'd probably start for like 40 high major teams in college basketball. He's the 4th guard off the bench for Florida.
Let me give you another one, just because, Flan coming back gives Cal an 8-man rotation. I get it. But I think Texas Tech is better than we may think. But Arkansas is like Cal's doing that thing, right, where he's played the underdog card. He's been kind of indifferent. Arkansas feels pretty good about themselves. What's the what's the give and take there as you look at this matchup?
Yeah, for me, I really like Texas Tech in this one. I think Kansas, Arkansas's first-round matchup, ranked outside the top 130 in half-court offense. St. John's, like we talked about, ranked outside the top 200 in half-court offense. And now Arkansas, a team who has struggled to score at times this year, gets a Texas Tech team that ranks 20th in half-court offense. Like, this is a completely different animal offensively. And I think, JT Toppin's ability to score inside and out is huge, but Darian Williams is the huge X factor, I think, for me. Like those mid-range pull-ups he can do, like he'll, if Boogie Flan's on the floor, like Texas Tech will do a really good job of using inverted screens to get a small guard on a big forward like Williams, and he'll just back him down and find buckets. And then also just the math too, like Chance McMillian, I think, will be back, but Texas Tech can really fill it up from 3. I think they could make like 5 or 6 more threes in Arkansas in this one. It's kind of going to change the calculus there from a numbers game, and Arkansas is just not going to be able to find enough offense. Texas Tech is just they're so well schooled offensively, and the ability to be able to have elite scores at all 3 levels makes them different. I have Texas Tech in the Final Four, and I think they beat Arkansas.
Isaac, who did you have winning before the tournament?
Yeah, I went with Duke. As horrible as it sounds, like I couldn't get past it because I felt like the UConn model of like an amazing rim protection team mixed with a half-court offense that just creates so many terrific shots is something that was too hard for me to overlook. And I don't know, a lot of people were freaking out about Cooper Flagg's rolled ankle. I didn't think he looked that injured the next, when he was
he doesn't even have to be there, but he doesn't even have to be great for them to win. Like that's
a great point.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of these other guys need their great players to be great. Mm-hmm. Flag can just be good, and Duke's just fine.
Yeah, it looks like it's because I think it goes back to the shots that they create and how well they hit on role players. Like, no team in college basketball creates more unguarded catch and shoot threes than Duke. And that's because of Sion James. Like he's a great passer. Con Knipple is another terrific playmaker. Tyrese Proctor is shooting the absolute cover off the ball right now. But, just the ability to move the basketball, play with pace, just make the simple plays. Duke makes the simple plays left and right. Like, I just really trust that team. And that's weird saying that when they're one of the younger teams in this field. The talent is just through the roof, and the processes seems like just really, really smart. Kanan Maliwatch, I mean, my God, like he is just, I think teams are shooting 48% at the rim when he's on the floor against Duke. Like he just blasts out the sun. He's enormous.
So when you take a look at if you're going to coach and we've got to hire you, Isaac, would you rather be in Minnesota or Virginia?
Whoa, wow, great question. For me, I think Minnesota is sneaky prepared to invest in basketball because that state loves basketball.
It's really good on the AAU scene.
I'll say they
really
put
good.
out a lot of talent.
Yeah, it's really good.
I worked up there in Minnesota for a year after I graduated from college, and just like the basketball in that state is just awesome. And I know it's like a hockey loving state, but man, hoops is super
really
important
good.
there. So
Yeah.
I think, and I think that being in the Big Ten just gives you a little bit of an advantage from a money perspective. I think there's a little bit of desperation with that brass of like, we have got to get back to being, a team that can really be a force to be reckoned with in the Big Ten. I think Minnesota is going to have sneaky great money in this cycle. And if they're able to go get Nico Medved from Colorado State, I think that Minnesota has a chance to be very competent in year one with, room to really grow.
So I was going to ask you real quick, of the guys that have been hired already, which do you like the best? DeVries to Indiana, McCollum to Iowa, or I'm forgetting one. I'm forgetting a big one.
Texas.
Miller
Sean
to Texas.
Miller to Texas.
Miller to Texas.
I like Sean Miller to Texas.
How about that thief in the night move?
Didn't he almost get the job last time?
It's like, hey, remember last time when we talked? Let's just do that. Okay, done.
That's my bad.
Isn't college basketball's coaching carousel just the best?
It's wild.
It's just the best. I saw a really funny picture on social media after Texas got announced. They made the first four, and they're playing Xavier, and you just see like Rodney Terry like jumping for joy. Chris Del Conte, the Texas athletic director, like hands over his face in the picture. It was like exactly. It was pretty funny, but yeah, no, I think all of those guys. Honestly, all three of those different programs that you brought up, Texas, Iowa, and Indiana, have absolutely upgraded. But I think Sean Miller is an elite coach in college basketball. That Texas fan base / basketball program really wants to win. I think he's gonna have insane money there in the SEC. The Moody Center is beautiful. It's really cool venue to watch basketball. And they have access to great talent down in Texas. I feel like Texas has a chance to be one of the best teams in the SEC extremely quickly with Sean Miller there.
You have any more? You good? That's our guy, Isaac Trotter. We appreciate your time, Isaac, and enjoy the rest of the tournament, bud.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Isaac.